life of Joseph. Most of you are aware of Joseph's life because we've talked about it for a while now. I've argued that we brag about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the patriarchs by Hebrew Bible of the Old Testament, but I believe that Joseph, and the extent in which his life is talked about, that Joseph should very well be one of the patriarchs. We've been hanging out with Joseph since the moment that we met him when he was 17 years old. And now we see Joseph at the age of 30. We've watched the personal development of Joseph's life. And we've watched Joseph go from a place of being a teenager to now, in chapter 41, he's a grown man. An interesting part of the development of Joseph's life is that Joseph's life has been way more than the word that I commonly use, interesting. Because when you think about the development of Joseph's life, depending on who you would ask, Joseph's life has been a complete wreck. Because the reality is, and we talked about many times, that Joseph has literally been on a personal roller coaster in his life. So depending on who you ask, Joseph's life will be a complete wreck. Because when you think about Joseph, there's been moments in Joseph's life where, after all, he was buried alive by his own brothers. He was sold into slavery. Not only did he do slavery with the Ishmaelites, but he did slavery in Egypt. Only to find out, after getting a higher position, then losing the position because of an accusation by a woman who was dealing with her own insecurities and had him thrown in prison. He gets locked up in prison, Acon, and they won't let him out because they give him 2 more years, denies bail, and add 2 more years to his sentence, and he's in prison. And now, at this state in Joseph's life, he has literally been on this roller coaster, this personal roller coaster journey of his life. And if you were to ask anybody that experienced Joseph's life, they very well would be struggling with the idea of low self-esteem. Joseph, we've watched him, family, develop, and depending on who you ask, Joseph's life literally could be complete chaos. For 13 years, we've watched this up and down in his life. We've watched the brother be buried alive by his own blood brothers. We've watched somebody get a jacket that his daddy gave to him stripped off of him. We watched people lie on him and say that he was dead when he was still alive. He was sold into slavery not one time, Trey, but twice. The Ishmaelites and in Egypt. He gets there, he's thrown in prison because of an accusation by a woman who's dealing with her own insecurities. He gets in prison, he lifts up somebody else's spirit. He's there for other people, only for them to get their self back in a good place, get back on their feet, and to forget totally about him. He gets 2 more years after being denied bail. In addition to him being innocent, he serves 2 more years in prison. If you talk to some people, Joseph's life is a wreck. It's chaotic. It's messed up. It's a negative life. But what I found in the development and watching Joseph from the age of 17 to 30 for 13 years, I found that though it may seem as if his life is in a negative position, what I've noticed is that there has always been movement in Joseph's life. Amen. Yeah, some of us may not understand it because when you look at it, it seems chaotic, traumatic. It seems as if it's negative. It seems as if nothing positive is happening. But the positive I learned about Joseph's life is for 13 years, though he's been on a personal and spiritual roller coaster, up and downs, his life has had movement. There's been activity in his life. And the truth is, some of us will never be able to shout over that because the reality is in 13 years of many of our lives, we've had no movement. And what I've come to learn, family, catch this if you can, that I'd rather have negative movement than no movement at all. Why do you say that, Cray? Because as long as I'm moving, that means I got life. And as long as I got life, that means I got another opportunity. And somebody, you might catch this at Dairy Queen or at the red light, but don't you get so caught up in which direction you're moving. Just remember that you're still moving. And any mechanism that is moving, that suggests that they still have life. And as long as you got breath in your body, you got an opportunity to get right what you messed up trying to do. So I'm looking at Joseph's life, and I'm not messed up by the fact that he's been locked up, that he's did 2 additional years in prison. I'm not messed up because he was in slavery. I'm not messed up because he was buried alive by his brothers. The reality and what I shout about is that the brother had movement in his life. And the reality is, you may not catch this, but I speak over my own life. There's been some messed up moments, some trifling moments, some trying times. I've been broke before. I've been hurt. I've been brokenhearted. I've lost jobs. I've lost vehicles. I've lost home. But the reality is, with all the stuff I lost, with all the stuff that seemed to push me backwards, the reality is, when I was going backwards, I was still moving. And as long as you got movement in your life, that means you got had movement. And now, when we meet Joseph in chapter 41, he's no longer a teenager. He's a full-grown man now. He's not 17 years old anymore. He's 30 years old at this time, and he has just received the greatest promotion of his life. Straight out of prison, he gets interviewed by the Pharaoh. And in the interview, the Pharaoh hires him straight out of prison. And Pharaoh says, listen, I want you to come work for me. And you're not just going to be another employee. You're not going to just be a part-time worker. You're not going to be a slave. But I'm putting you in charge of everything in Egypt. So he gets hired straight out of prison. The greatest promotion he could have ever gotten. He gets hired by the Pharaoh of Egypt to be in charge over the entire land of Egypt. Not only that, but the Pharaoh gives him a gold ring of authority that he places on his finger, gives him new clothes to put on, puts a gold chain around his neck, puts him on a luxury driving chariot that's equivalent to our 21st century Bentley. So he's riding in style. He goes, and not only that, he travels, the Bible says, throughout all of Egypt. So the brother now is in a place of prominence. He's in charge of the whole land of Egypt. He has a diamond ring of authority on his finger, new clothes, gold chain around his neck, and he has the ancient Egyptian version of a Bentley, a chariot, a luxury chariot, and he's traveling all throughout Egypt. This is the greatest promotion that Joseph has ever had in his life. Can you imagine what it must have been like to travel from literally the pit to the palace? He's gone from the bottom to the top. He's been promoted to the greatest promotion of his life. And he gets this promotion, Shavante, all because he interprets another man's dream. Can I drop this nugget on you? There are perks in supporting other people's dreams. Because so many of us have found ourselves hating on the next man or woman because of the dream they had, and you wonder why life is on hold for you. But what I've learned, if I can celebrate the next man or woman and what they have going on in their life, the reality is that God is doing it for my neighbor next door. That means that God is doing it in my neighborhood. So that means that somebody else is getting blessed, then I must be next in line. And the reason you got to learn to celebrate other people is because if God is at their house blessing them and he can hear you celebrate, then that means maybe God will knock on your door next. But the problem with many of us, we're too busy hating on other people, and while they're getting blessed, God can't hear you saying nothing. But I've learned, Joseph, that I'm going to support somebody else's dream, because in supporting their dream, I'm going to get a ring on it, I'm going to get new clothes, I'm going to get a necklace around my neck, I'm going to have an ancient Egyptian version of a Bentley, and watch this, I'm going to travel throughout the entire world. That's what Joseph did, because there's perks in supporting somebody else's dream. Joseph did all of this stuff. Joseph has a diamond ring. Joseph has new clothes. He has 2 chains. He has this luxury chariot that he's traveling in. And he travels throughout all of Egypt, and he's only 30 years old. All because he supported another person's dream. Joseph, when we meet him in chapter 41, Joseph has been a spiritual roller coaster, on the individual roller coaster, but now he finds himself in a position where he's received the greatest promotion of his life. He's in charge of everything in Egypt. It's interesting, family, because by the time we make it to verse 50, Joseph's life gets to us in a significant way. Because when we see Joseph at this point, Joseph has already spoken over the life of the Pharaoh. He told Pharaoh, he said, Pharaoh, listen, you have 2 dreams. They mean one and the same. Your dreams mean that for 7 years, there's going to be prosperity and abundance. But then for 7 years, there's going to be famine and drought. That means you're going to have much for 7 years, but then 7 years, you ain't going to have a lot. And when we meet Joseph in chapter 50, it's quite interesting to me because Joseph puts us in a position to wrestle with him. Because Joseph in chapter 41, verse 50, it says that as the prosperous time is coming to an end and the famine is getting ready to begin, Joseph and his wife have 2 children. Okay, some of y'all just, how in the world, Joseph, do you get to a point that you wait until the prosperous time is ending, and now you're going to start having children? And what I believe, family, is that Joseph in this moment has not panicked. Everybody else in the land is panicking, but Joseph doesn't panic because Joseph knows he has enough to survive. Because Joseph is the interpreter of the dream. And Joseph gave the encouragement to the Pharaoh that make sure you put somebody in charge that knows how to save when times are good. Come here, grandmama, for the rainy day. So family, if we're not careful, it can still leave us in a position, Keegan, where we ask ourselves the question, Cray, how can I be so confident that I can survive with what I have? How can you tell me that I'm living in rural area Hazlehurst? And how can you tell me when the economy is not up to par for me? How can you tell me when job opportunities are not what they should be and people don't want to pay you what you're worth? How can you tell me that I still have enough to survive? Have you ever found yourself in a position where you had to ask yourself, how can I survive with times the way they are? How can I survive without job opportunities that pay me what I'm worth? How can I survive in a time when it seems like marriages are breaking down? How can I survive when it seems like people are getting murdered left and right, dying from cancer, sick with diabetes, arthritis? How can I survive in a time like this? Pray, how can you tell me to have confidence in a time when it seems like I can't survive? Have you ever thought about the moments of your life when everything used to be all good? When you used to really see what was left over from your check, but now it feels like your check is already spent before you cash it? Do you remember the moments when it seemed like you was popping and everybody was trying to holler at you, but now you got to take a double check in the mirror to make sure everything's still straight with you? Can you remember times when it seemed as if everything was going smooth and everything was good in your life, everything was going your way, and then it seems as if in an instant everything started going the opposite way? Do you remember times when you used to pray? You didn't even have to get down on your knees. You just said a prayer while you was walking, and it seemed like God showed up right there and answered your prayer. But now your prayers are not the same because you're too busy asking God, do you hear me? Versus trying to get a real prayer through. Have you ever found yourself, family, in a position where you had to ask yourself, how can I have confidence that I can survive with what I have? Come on. Have you ever found yourself, family, questioning God, asking God, God, is this really what life is about? God, you sent me to school just so I have to do this? God, you put me through situations just for me to get here? God, is this all that you have? You ever asked yourself the tough question or asked God the tough question? God, is this all that you have for me? God, you expect me to survive with these people connected to me? Have y'all really ever asked yourself the question, how can I survive with what I have? The question that we often ask, based on the thought, is can I have confidence in surviving with what I have? And family, I want to introduce to you 3 reasons why you can have confidence in surviving with what you have. Number 1, you can have confidence in surviving with what you have is because you survived worse stuff. Let me show y'all what it takes. When we meet Joseph in chapter 50, on chapter 41, verse 50 and 51, Joseph and his wife Asenath have had 2 children when the famine ends. Not when the famine begins and when the prosperity ends. They've had 2 children. And this is the reality of my life situation. I am a co-parent with my daughter's mother, and I'm not the custodial parent. But when I have my daughter, it's interesting because the way she eats at 8 years old already puts a dent in my pocket. And that doesn't include that I can't get her hair braided for free no more. $25 to get her hair braided. That doesn't include when she just wants something out the store. I've learned that when she's with me, it costs more. So I couldn't even imagine at this stage of my life having 2 children, but let alone having 2 children when the prosperity ends and the famine begins. So I'm struggling with this and I'm wrestling. I'm asking, Joseph, how in the world do you have 2 children, not when the prosperity is booming, but you wait until the economy goes down and the famine is about to begin? I had to parenthetically take a journey spiritually back in my imagination and go to ancient Egypt and visit Joseph. And I had to say, Joe, listen, why did you and Asenath decide that y'all were going to have 2 babies when the prosperity ends
you lose the job.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make sense, Joseph, that if you're going to have children, that you have children when the job starts? And Joseph looked at me. Y'all want to know what Joseph said to me? I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you. Joseph said, Cray, do you remember that I was buried in a citrion, left to die with no water and no food? He said, do you remember that I was sold into slavery not one time, but 2 times? He said, Cray, do you remember that I was in prison and I had to survive off 1 meal a day? He said, the reason that I can have 2 children and keep producing when it's famine is because I've survived worse stuff. And you know why some of you are going to make it when it seems like everything is breaking loose in your life to kill you? You're going to make it because you survived worse stuff. This ain't the worst time you've ever been in. This ain't the brokest you've ever been. This ain't the most miserable you've ever been. Well, I got about 3 witnesses that can say I've been through a lot worse than what I'm going through right now. So the truth is, family, this ain't nothing compared to what I've already made it through. So that gives me encouragement and confidence that I can survive because I've dealt with worse stuff. You know power, but you got to realize that in this life, don't you get caught up in what you're facing right now. Sometimes you got to look back over your life and realize that I've been through way worse than what I'm facing right now. They fired me from the job, that's cool. I've been fired 1 time before. You gonna cut me off, that's cool, dude. I've been cut off before. Girl, I've been cut off before. I may hurt for a little while, but Kiki, do you love me? I'll find somebody else because I've learned in my life that I've been through way worse stuff than what I'm going through right now. So how do I have confidence that I'm gonna survive? Because you survived stuff worse than this. I know it gets tough, I know it gets hard, but thank you, Reverend Jones, I had some good days. I've had some bad days, I've had some hills to climb. I thank you, but no matter what I go through, I will not complain because I will survive this. Why, Millie? Because I've survived worse stuff. So, Cray, you don't have to get bent out of shape when people talk about you. You know why? Because they talked about you before. You don't have to get bent out of shape hating when they come against you because they came against you before. And the reality is, there's nothing the devil can do to destroy me now. Because Satan, if you didn't get me 5 years ago, you don't stand a chance to get me right now. And do I got somebody in there to help me preach right now? Because you know you got confidence that you're going to survive with what you have because you survived worse stuff. I feel like going crazy because my life is not caught up in the circumstances I'm looking at right now because the same God that did it before is the same God that's going to do it one more. I got confidence that I can survive with what I got because I've survived worse stuff. I've been without a car before, so I'll make it without a car now. I've been without a woman or a man before, I'll make it without one now. Because I've survived worse stuff. Number one, you can have confidence that you can survive with what you got, Isaiah, because you survived worse stuff. Joseph says, look, I can keep producing when it don't make sense to other people because I've survived worse stuff. Him and his wife wait until the prosperity ends and then they give birth to Manasseh and Ephraim, 2 children, because you can survive with what you have because number one, you survive worse stuff. You know why? You have confidence. Number 2, to survive with what you have is because what affected other people will not affect you. Watch what this text says. Let me slow down and give it to you. Watch what this text says in verse 53 and 54. Listen to it. It says, the 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph had said, there was famine in all the other lands, but in the whole land of Egypt, there was food. When all Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, go to Joseph. Do what he tells you. Watch this, family. You can survive, have confidence that you're going to survive what you have because number 2, what affect other people won't affect you. Joseph Joseph has come from slave to now he's in charge in Egypt. And the Bible says, when the famine hits the other land, they all head to Egypt. And then when the famine hits the Egyptians, they start crying and they go to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says, nah, go to Joseph. Because what I've learned, family, in this is that sometimes we not only get caught up in looking at the Joneses and their stuff, but we start to admire the strength of the Joneses. And if we're not careful psychologically, we'll trick ourselves to believe if the Joneses didn't survive it, then I must don't stand a chance. Okay, if y'all will be honest and admit that you've been in situations where you looked at somebody else and you saw them break down and you said, well, if that made them break down, then certainly I don't even stand a chance to stand up against it. And if we're not careful, we won't just envy the Joneses and their stuff, but we'll envy their strength. And when they fail and when they fall, we'll look at ourselves and think, well, if they didn't make it, there's no way I can make it. Let me give you an example. Freshman year at Troy University, I was in biology. I hate science still to this day. Hats off to medical personnel and people that do science. Still don't like science, didn't like science. Logan, I'm in a biology class as a freshman, right? Spring semester, freshman biology class. And for those of you that have ever been to college, you know that sometimes professors will strategically give tests right before spring break. Now, I've never understood this philosophy until this class. Test right before spring break. So the professor gives us a biology test right before spring break. Troy is an hour and a half from Panama City. So usually folks take off about Wednesday. We had class on Friday. He tells us we got a test on Friday. I'm studying, the little bit of studying I did. We get to class for the exam. Pass out the exam, put my name on the paper, and Coach P, the first 5 minutes of the exam, I'm sweating bullets. He stops us and says, everybody stop. Put your pencil down. Get out your notes. He said, you got 10 minutes with your notes and your text. I pull out the few notes that I took in class. Take notes, write down the answers. I get about 3 good answers. He said, put your notes up. 5 more minutes into the test, he stops us again. He says, you got 10 minutes to get with somebody else in the class. Now that's more my speed. So at run, this is not the time you get with your homeboy and your homegirl. Y'all acting funny. This is the moment where you find the smartest person in the class. And you use your charm and your influence to say, hey, let me partner with you. We got 10 minutes. He gives us 10 minutes with the person, and now my test is looking better. So then we go back. He says, get back to your seats. We start taking tests 5 minutes into the exam. He says, stop. He says, what you got right there, turn it in. Now I'm shook because, number one, my notes were terrible. I didn't do well at that point. I got a good partner. I did pretty well. We come back to school. The test is going to be given to us. The grades are going to be given to us the next week. We get back on Monday after spring break. We come into class, and they're passing back the exams, and the girl that was really intelligent in our class, probably the smartest person in our class, she had just joined a sorority the semester before. So her and the sorority girls left on Wednesday to Panama City. So when she came in and took the exam that morning and got her grade back, she didn't score well. And I'm tripping because I said if she didn't do good, okay, y'all missing my whole story. If she didn't score well on the test, then I, with my notes, with the partner I have, I don't stand a chance. I looked at her score. Psychologically, it messed me up. I got my exam back, and my grade was 30 points higher than hers. Okay, that was about to get me excited. You want to know why? I looked and I thought, how could she not score well? She's the smartest girl in our class. To the sorority, now they had a good time. She came back, she had to take the test without notes. She had to take the test without a partner. She had to take the test without the curve that the rest of us got. And when the professor gave us our test back, he said, some of you didn't do well what the other people in class had. And what I'm trying to say to you, you can see the spiritual is the only reason you don't survive and you're not going to fall like somebody else fell is because you got something that they don't have. And you got to make up in your mind, I'm not going to look at the Joneses, I'm not going to look at other strong people that fell, because I'm going to tell you now, I ain't getting caught up in those sex scandals. You know why? Because I got something that other pastors don't have. I ain't getting caught up in no lies. You know why? Because I got something that they don't have. You got to make up in your mind that I'm not going to lose my mind, I'm not going to lose my anointing, I'm not going to lose my church, I'm not going to lose my business, I'm not going to lose my husband or my wife, because I got something that they don't have. And you want to know what I got? I got God deep down inside of me. I got the Spirit of God working in me. And as long as you got King Jesus, you don't need nobody else. And I just know that some of you feel like me, that I'm not going to fall because somebody else fell, because I got something in me that they don't got in them. And you can know that you're going to survive. You can have confidence that you're going to survive, because what affected them is not going to affect me. And the reason that it's not going to affect you is because you got something in you. I know other people die from cancer, but you're not going to die because you got something that they don't have. I know other people got sick in their body, but you're not going to get sick because you got something they don't have. I know arthritis is bothering you right now, but you just keep shaking it off. You know why? Because you got something they don't have. And everything that took other people out, it's not going to take me out. Alcohol won't take me out like it took my daddy out, because I got something that he don't got. Drugs won't take me out like it took my mother out. You know why? I got something she don't have. You got to make up in your mind, I'm not going to go down, I'm not going to fail, I'm not going to fall. I can survive with what I have, because what affected them will not, Tiger, will not affect me. I don't have to be like my daddy, because my daddy ain't got what I got. I don't have to be like other folks in the community, because they don't have what I have. I don't have to be broke like other people been broke, because they don't got what I got. You got a book inside of you. You got a business inside of you. You got $1 million thought and idea inside of you. You got a restaurant inside of you. You got a daycare inside of you. You got something inside of you that when other people are broke, you don't have to be broke, because you got something inside of you. Confident that I can survive with what I have, because what affected other people, it will not affect me. Joseph is in Egypt, and Miss Joanne in Egypt. Listen to what this verse says, verse 53. It says, and when the famine hit the other land, Egypt still had food. Says, and then watch Joseph, he doesn't have to panic, because then the text says, and when the famine hit Egypt, they cried to Pharaoh, but Leviathan Pharaoh said, go see Joseph. Which means that when everybody else didn't have anything, Lil Wayne, when they was experiencing the drought, Joseph still had plenty. And can I prophetically speak this over somebody's life? When everybody else start going down, you gonna start coming up. I don't know who that's for. I gotta get out of here. You can be confident in surviving with what you have. Here's third and finally, the reason why you can be confident in surviving with what you have, because you stored something up for later. Can I show y'all in the text real quick? Am I at home? I'm right with y'all. This is how I do it. Listen to what this verse says. Verse 55, 56 and 55. It says, when the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph, the slave, the one that had been buried alive in the Citrian, the one that had served additional time in prison, the one that his brother said was dead, Joseph. Watch this. It says, when the famine spread all over the country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians. For the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the world, listen to this, y'all listen to this is in our Bible. All the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe everywhere. Can I show y'all something in this real quick?
Yes.
Yeah. This ain't just Egypt no more. It's everybody in the world. This is in our Bible. Everybody in the world has to come to the same dude that was a slave,
Come on.
that went to prison on accusation of sexual harassment and rape, the one that was thrown in the pit and they took his jacket and said he was dead. Everybody in the world has to come to him. And watch what it says. It says he opens up the storehouses. And here it is for entrepreneur Shavante, and he sells the grain. Okay, y'all listen to all of this. It's better than me than it is to y'all. He could have just gave it away. But now you're the only store on the block. And everybody in the world has to come get your service. Come here, Anthony Coleman. You're the only carpenter left. And because you stored something up for later, now everybody in the world has to come get your service. I thought I had some people that really wanted to be millionaires, that were entrepreneurs. You should have caught that. That would have got you as excited as I am. Because now I realize that if I store something up for later, I can be confident in surviving with what I have. Let me show you where this makes sense, and I'm getting out of your way. Malachi chapter 3, verse 10, right? It's one of the most quoted scriptures, one of the most disliked scriptures, and one of the most used and manipulated scriptures. But let me help you with this scripture real quick, because it caught me in a very vulnerable place. Because in Malachi, it says, and bring the whole tithe into, where, Craig? The storehouse. But we always stop there during offering time. Can I keep it real with y'all? We preach it, Mason, and we stop and bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. But why do we bring the whole tithe, Mr. Willie, into the storehouse? It says, so that there will be food in the house. Now that didn't make sense to me. Let me teach you for a moment. That didn't make a lot of sense to me initially. Until I went back, looked at some Hebrew words. I won't take y'all through all that stuff. I went back and looked, and the significance of this was not that there would just be food in the house for now. You bring the whole tithe into the storehouse so we have food in the house later. So what are you saying? Basically what you do when you tithe and you give, you may not be storing it up to get something back today. But maybe the tithe I gave in 2012 is what kept me from getting in an accident in 2017. Y'all listen to this. Maybe it was what I gave in 2011 that kept me from dying of AIDS in 2018. Maybe it's what you gave the time before that's keeping you right now. Because when you brought the whole tithe to the storehouse, there was food in the house for later. I ain't done with it though. I ain't done with it. Malachi chapter 10, I'm about to get out of y'all way. You got to make sure you got something stored up for later. It gives you confidence to survive with what you have. Watch what God then says. The text says, Miss Joanne, Malachi chapter 3, verse 10. God then says, test me and see. Watch this now. God says, test me and see. What? See what, God? See what? Test you and see what? That I will throw open. Listen now, this translation that I'm reading, it didn't say that I would just open. God said, test me and see that I will throw open the windows of heaven and pour you out blessings. Here it is, that you do not have room enough. Watch this, y'all. This is about to mess you up. But see, y'all stop right there at room. But this version says room enough to store. So what God is saying is when you bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, you're going to have food for later, and I'm going to give you blessings that you can't even keep in your why, family, this is why I promise I'm going on this. This is why I'm confident in surviving with what I have. This is why I don't get bent out of shape about what I drive, where I live at right now, how I feel some days. I don't get caught up in that about where the job is or where I'm working at or who I'm dating or what's going on in my life. You know why? Because I remember what I sold in 2008. I remember when I stood and I told God that I'm going to give my life to you. I remember the first time I dropped down on my knees and I didn't have but $40 in my pocket and I threw it at the altar. I remember when I didn't even have a job and I was still trying to give $10 here as a tithe and $11 here and $7.38 here and I was giving to God. I remember when I didn't have a dime in my pocket, but I went and I served. I gave food to the homeless. I made sure I talked to people. I preached for bananas and rotten apples and knock off Adidas cologne. I remember when I was sowing stuff, and now everything I sold, you want to see where it came at? Just look around right now. Look around right now. Look around right now. You want to know something? Can I remind y'all of something? This building is paid for. And see, that's what's going to make me lose my mind. Because every time I get discouraged, every time I get down, I drive right past this room right here. I walk in here. I don't care if rain is coming down. I don't care if there's water on the floor. I look at these stairs that Anthony built. You know what? The stairs are paid for. I look at that wall that Anthony did. You know what? It's paid for. I look at these bricks they paid for. I look at that grass is paid for. You know why? Because we put something in a storehouse. And can I make that relevant to your life right now? You want some stuff paid for? You want some stuff taken care of in your life? You want to see healing in your body? Just make sure you bring something to the storehouse. Because when you put it in the storehouse, God will make sure, because this is what God said, I'll supply all of your needs according to my riches and glory through my son Christ Jesus. All you got to do is put something in the storehouse. Isaiah, man, I can survive with what I have because I stored something up for later. Microwave generation, don't expect what you store, brother, to come back today. It may be 10 years from now. If we take a moment to really look over our life deep and we think about this thing, there's a possibility that you sold kind words to somebody 5 years ago. And when football gets discouraging, as it will, when it feels like they're not honoring how great you are, when school gets tough, it may be the words you said to somebody 5 years ago that some random student walks by and say, D, you know what? You're a phenomenal football player and you're a smart guy. And that's all you need. That's the boost you need because you sold kind words 5 years ago. You want to know something else? You want to sow into time. You want to sow your faithfulness. You want to sow your work. You want to sow stuff now so that God makes sure that you have something for later. I'm done. Y'all can stand to your feet. I'm done.